Welcome to a new episode of Forbes Digital Revolution. As always, a warm greeting from Federico Morgantini. Today we return to talk about NFTs, but we do it in a way that is different from the usual, not technical, not too digital, but in a more humanistic manner. We are indeed doing this with Cesare Catania, a famous artist known for his painting and sculpture, who is highly recognized by critics in traditional art and has approached the world of NFTs, quickly becoming a phenomenon in NFT art as well. We will have him tell us how the NFT can be a bridge that connects material art, the somewhat physical art, to digital art. Without taking away space from our guest, let's head to the studio. Here we are in the studio. We are with Cesare Catania, a very established artist, even though he is young, recognized in what we call traditional art, sculpture, painting, and material art. But in the meantime, I welcome him. Cesare Catania was able to quickly become a key player in the world of NFTs when this technology exploded in the art world. Tell us about your educational and professional journey and how, in a certain sense, you have achieved recognition at such a young age, as it is not easy to be established in the art world at your age. How did you do it? And how has your art become so recognized?
So first of all, good morning, everyone. I come from a traditional educational background, an academic path. I studied civil engineering. First, I attended a scientific high school. Then I pursued civil engineering, and I tried to carry on my passion, which is my passion for art. This passion has been with me since I was a child. Okay, so since I was little, I have essentially been painting and working with material. I realized over the years that this passion of mine could become a job, and so I developed a whole series of things to navigate attitudes that somehow led me to turn an activity that could initially only be a pastime into something more.
Here, he is famous and recognized for a very particular art because he is both a painter and a sculptor, and his works are a blend of the two. They may have the shape of a painting, but are actually very material, possessing a third dimension beyond just that of the canvas. Can you tell us a bit about your art and whether it corresponds to different periods, or what are, let's say, the keys of expression that you incorporate into the different types of works you create?
Well, let's say I started drawing and painting with a focus on geometry. And this is certainly an influence that probably comes from my academic background. As I progressed, I realized that both informal art and cubism felt a bit restrictive to me in the sense that I couldn't fully express the sensations and emotions I was experiencing. So let's say I got a bit creative and found a way to represent a material that somehow comes out of the canvas for the paintings, or that perhaps makes the sculptures even more three-dimensional compared to what could be a classic view of a sculpture standing alone. So I started to develop studies on specific materials, which are ultimately silicone, mineral pigments, acrylics, glues, and resins for a few years. Now I have been creating artworks that somehow work with these materials, mixing them perhaps with natural rope and steel. I continue to follow the trends of hyper-realist art informal art, and cubist art. But I would say that this technique I have refined using silicone with mineral pigments, and acrylic feels closer to me at this moment in my artistic activity, more aligned with my feelings and inspirations.
Now we come to the theme of the day, which is how NFTs are effectively a point of connection between traditional art, material art, and completely digital art. In other episodes, we have discussed how NFTs have made purely digital art defensible, sellable, traceable, and also economically significant in some way. In the past, for an artist who created works with Photoshop, it was difficult to have them recognized as true works of art and to assign them value, especially because it was challenging to sell them when I sent them via email, and they would already become 2 pieces, 1,000, and so on. The NFT, therefore, gives a certain dignity of art to the purely digital artist. What happens instead for an artist like you? You entered the world of NFTs, were immediately recognized by the market, even in the NFT space, and sold NFT works for a significant amount. What was the journey that allowed for this transition?
So I believe that NFTs first need some clarification. Today we talk about NFTs in general, and with the acronym NFT, at least 2 types of works, let's call them, that are identified. So 2 types of products. We identify both crypto art and collectibles. So first of all, what I have done by choice is to approach NFTs exactly as I do with traditional art. This means following the same path, being inspired by something, waiting for these inspirations to mature in some way so that they are ready to be represented from an artistic point of view. At this point, it is just a matter of making a choice. What is that choice? The choice is to understand whether the artwork truly deserves to be brought, let's say, to light through a physical expression, or if it deserves to be done through a digital work. One can replace the other, but it is not said that one is better or worse than the other. It depends on what kind of connotation one wants to give to the work of art at that moment. I can say, from my experience, what happened, and I found it very rewarding to work on pieces that I had already created in the physical realm, taking the same inspirations that brought those works to life, and then transferring them into the digital space, not as simple replicas of physical art, because, in my opinion, this helps collectors and art lovers understand whether that work is a genuine piece of art or a replicated one. So from this point of view, I simply did what comes most naturally to me, which is to feel emotions. I did nothing different, just the same thing, but in front of a terminal, in front of a computer. I use calculation software, I use Blender for modeling, and also for rendering. I must say that at the beginning it was a winding path, because when you are a traditional artist, and especially when you are very self-confident about what you do, putting yourself completely on the line in front of a medium that is not a canvas, that is not oil on canvas or acrylic, but something digital, makes you feel small. In front of a completed work of art, the artist feels small, but in front of an NFT at the beginning, I felt microscopic, because the dimensional relationships between the work you are creating and, if we want to introduce a new concept, the metaverse in which you want to place it, are completely disproportionate. When you work on a physical piece, you are working on a work that is 2 meters, 3 meters, 1 meter tall. When you work digitally, you are very small compared to the piece you are creating. The work can actually be placed in a universal context. So the fact of working on sensations and emotions in front of a piece whose actual dimensions you do not know is something that, from an artistic point of view, creates a bit of imbalance.
I have always fallen in love, let's say, with the whole aspect of video art. And so I decided to create works that were crypto art pieces, not collectibles. Essentially, I brought to life small short films, and if one looks into what they are, they can see that they are genuine artistic products. They are not a replica or a surrogate of my traditional art. I have experienced it this way, and probably the art world has experienced it in this manner as well. I believe another very fascinating thing is that as a sculptor, and thus a three-dimensional artist, I have also created three-dimensional digital works. Here, 3D has always been present, but they are not confined within an NFT. They are actually accessible through a very fascinating system that resembles holograms. Most NFTs are enjoyed through screens, which are the evolution of the 2D painting, while the fact that your NFTs can also be appreciated within three-dimensional glass tech that you can walk around makes them particularly captivating. How this aspect of being a step ahead compared to those who draw bored monkeys or have simply made graphic videos is key to his success in NFTs.
But then, let's say that the starting point of my entire journey, and this is something that has been going on for several years, is the concept of the democratization of art. I start from this. I am definitely an advocate of this kind of thinking. I was already demonstrating it around 2016, 2017 when I was creating physical works that somehow fell into a more democratic realm compared to those of art made solely for the collector, solely for the artist. In 2017, I participated in an exhibition called Art for Everyone, where I created a work of art for people affected by Dalton syndrome. Essentially, I aimed to make all people in the world, regardless of their, let's call it, visual characteristic, capable of feeling emotions and understanding the key interpretation of the work they were observing. In this case, we were talking about a sculpture. The fact of incorporating the NFT into my artistic production has somehow given me the opportunity to continue this democratic journey. Let's say that the first thing I thought was, okay, I mint the NFT on the blockchain, but I would like everyone to be able to have it at home on their television. So the first thing I did, right after minting them, was to put them on YouTube so that anyone can comfortably watch them.
This, as we have explained many times in our show, is like seeing a photograph of the Mona Lisa, of course. I mean, one thing is to see it, and another thing is to own it. Therefore, only those who own the NFT in their wallet are the owners. Theoretically, they also own the exploitation rights. That is, while those who see it are simply a user, let's say, a recipient.
Sure, no, exactly this. I wanted to connect to this in order to then arrive at the topic related to the display cases. Let's say that two-dimensional screens today have a limit, which is that of two-dimensionality. The possibility of using holographic displays, although still not fully evolved, allows me to make these holograms move in space. Today, we find ourselves in what I consider an intermediate situation, so we are not yet in the future, but we are also not in the past. We are in a transitional phase. I try to live my art in a way that is somewhat consistent with the times and especially with the devices and technologies that we have available.
Here, NFTs are fundamentally viewed in three ways when it comes to art. Initially, 5 or 6 years ago, it was considered a system to create a digital certificate of authenticity, effectively substituting the certificate of authenticity for a physical artwork. Then there was the great boom of collectibles or small series art pieces such as photographs. which, thanks to NFTs, became defendable, thus transforming the product into a digital item that could also hold the dignity of a work of art. Then it expanded into operations similar to his, specifically those involving display cases and other works that are only possible thanks to blockchain technology. For example, these are works that are the offspring of an algorithm, of a smart contract. They self-generate, so they are always different as they are viewed, representing a plant that continues to grow. So, are there these three formulas? Will all three remain? Was the NFT just a trend? Which of these three formulas for using NFTs will be successful in the future?
So I will share my vision with you. This is how I see it. Now, we are at a point of transition in the middle. What I believe we should expect from the future of art, contemporary art, is to see works that are a mix of physical art and digital art. Today, we still do not have, let's say, any Oculus that allows us to experience the surrounding reality in an immersive way. Today, we only have Oculus devices that essentially allow us to enter a metaverse, enabling us to experience a parallel reality, but without engaging with the reality that surrounds us at that moment. Probably in the future, we do not know if it will be far or near. Artworks will be pieces that exist physically and through transparent goggles will somehow begin to come to life. So to answer your question, in my opinion, all the NFTs we have in front of us today will be examples of the past. Probably the NFT of the future will be an NFT that interacts with the physical artwork, which in some way is inseparable from its physicality. Perhaps the market is demonstrating this as well. Even those who love NFTs still want to have something physical in front of them that somehow shows what they own or what they are seeing or observing. Therefore, the NFT of the future will likely be an NFT that completely embraces the physical artwork and is inseparable, with one depending on the other. Probably the physical artwork will evoke sensations and emotions, and through perhaps a transparent Oculus, this physical work will transmit others. This is how I envision the future of NFTs, and it is especially what I am working on now.
Little by little, he sees the future of art as a digital art that is called where physicality and digitality, a word that probably does not exist, will be components. We will ask the Kruska to include it in the vocabulary. The digitality of the work becomes a component, but the physical one does not remain. So, according to you, the use of NFTs, the use of artificial intelligence, and the use of digital techniques, modeling, and so on, will all be present in what will be the art of the future. An artist who establishes themselves in 10 to 15 years will certainly do so along these lines.
Yes, because in reality, the artist, by definition, at least by my definition, is nothing more than a worker of emotion. How he expresses this attitude and how he approaches people simply depends on the expressive medium he wants to use at that moment. So if you feel like using an expressive medium that is digital, use the digital. If you feel like using the physical, use the physical. The problem is that today, there are still two worlds that are probably very disconnected. So, in my opinion, as you said, in 10 to 15 years, the artist will almost naturally produce works that are phygital, as you introduced earlier.
Moreover, the metaverse has experienced a significant boom, followed by a period where the excitement cooled down a bit. However, if we think about e-commerce, it was similar. In the late 90s, it was believed that no one could live without e-commerce. And then 5 years later, Amazon was almost bankrupt because in reality, it faced challenges, yet it eventually became a reality. Therefore, it is not certain that the metaverse will not become a fundamental reality in our future. If that is the case, it is clear that the concept of digital becomes essential. I am also more convinced that the metaverse to come is not the one from Ready Player One, the famous film where one estranges themselves from real life to enter the digital one, but rather it will be more of an augmented reality concept. Now there has been Fashion Week in the metaverse where, in reality, the most interesting things were the augmented reality fashion shows set in contexts different from where they were actually filmed. Therefore, it is likely that Fujita will become a way of life and thus also a way of making art.
Sure. Just imagine the possibility of having Oculus devices that somehow allow you to enter a museum or a gallery and experience something personal that is completely different from what you experience today. Even for those in the industry, this approach to digital, augmented reality, and artificial intelligence, in my opinion, is something that can help the entire sector. Of course, if someone experiences the digital reality with fear, worried that it might replace the real one, then in this case, I believe it is not the correct way to interpret it.
Well, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of our show. And as always, we have the pleasure of giving our guests the opportunity to share a bit about their project and their company. In this case, since you are an artist, I imagine you will tell us about the works you are currently pursuing and what your projects are. I asked the production team to put, let's say, the logo, which is effectively his signature, and our guests, and I gladly leave you the space to tell us what you are currently working on.
But then, let's say that currently the projects I am working on are numerous. There are both projects for the creation of sculptures, physical works of art, and also digital ones. Now I need to take a moment to understand what I can say and what I cannot say based on the signed NDAs. But let's say that today this is publicly visible. I am also working on a project of an artistic nature because it is inspired by my art, particularly by some artworks I have created. Between 2015 and 2016, it is a project with an artistic foundation aimed at sociocultural purposes. The project is called the Embrace Project. It is a project that was officially presented last year in 2022 and has been embraced by various institutions over the months. Currently, it is on display at the Poetry Museum of Piacenza. The project aims primarily to support not only art, of course, but also other disciplines such as poetry, literature, medicine, and social issues. Therefore, it is a broad spectrum, inclusive project that seeks to provide practical, operational, and ethical assistance to those disciplines that in some way relate to my art. This project is particularly inspired by a painting, a tapestry, an oil painting on canvas that I created in 2016 called The Embrace. Now, among other things, I am also working on some sculptural works related to the Embrace and some digital works. So soon you will see artistic expressions of the same concept that in some way approach both the materiality of sculpture and the futurity of the metaverse.
I know you had an event in Milan, what we call the Pirellone, the old building of the region where children were also involved. And there was, let's say, this concept of the embrace that also extended to tenderness. What was it specifically about, and how are the children involved?
So let's say that the main idea we started from was an idea related to the post-COVID era. For us, who are all over 40, I can say this without offending anyone. I believe the COVID was a parenthesis It was a parenthesis in the sense that we were used to normality and we found ourselves in a condition of social distancing. So we experienced COVID in some way as a parenthesis. For children, it is not the same, in the sense that what have children done? Often those who are 4, 5, or 6 years old have spent half of their lives confined within 4 walls. And so for them, social distancing has, in my opinion, ruined a possible social development in some way. Here, the Embrace wanted to convey as the main message on that occasion at Palazzo Pirelli that children are the category of people who somehow need to be embraced the most. Children are born to embrace, so they come into the world as individuals who naturally tend to hug. This is also demonstrated by the fact that, for instance, we often find ourselves on the beach and see a child come up and hug us, and then the mother arrives and says, "Oh, sorry, I thought he was the father." Yes, that's possible, but let's say that for them, it is a natural gesture. So what happens next? It happens that experiences and society teach us to defend ourselves by separating and distancing ourselves. But our true nature is to know how to embrace each other. Therefore, on that occasion, we wanted to emphasize this fact, and especially this gesture, which in some ways is simple, yet in some ways we must not forget. So this was a bit of the message.
Well, great. Really interesting. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you all, thank you, and thank you to everyone.
Naturally, thanks to all our viewers, a greeting from Federico Morgantini. I look forward to seeing you all on Monday evening at 10 p.m. and in reruns throughout the week. As always, on our website, bfcvideo.com, you can also find all the past episodes. Best regards.